Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified of each new video as they come out. Hey everybody, I'm JJ Johnson. You're watching Reality Survival. And today we are going to talk about bartering in an SHTF environment, whatever that may be, whatever that may look like. Some sort of a situation where there's, not full government involvement, maybe. Maybe they're, everything's not running like normal. There's been some sort of a collapse, economy failure, whatever. Who knows, I will say that there's probably, very few people in the world that would be considered an authority on bartering, especially in, a collapsed environment. And I don't consider myself to be an authority, but I have been on 5 deployments and several longer TDYs around the world, and I've spent a considerable amount of time haggling and buying things in third world markets. And so that's a fairly close approximation. It's not going to be exact, but it's probably a fairly close approximation to, what it may look like after little bartering markets get set up and stuff like that after there was a collapse in an economy. So I'm going to pull a lot from just my personal experience. I've bought stuff in markets in, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Jordan, Bahrain, UAE, Afghanistan, Iraq, Kyrgyzstan, Chile, India, and I think that's probably pretty close to it. So a few places, not all over, but I mean, all the fun spots. So I'm going to be drawing a lot from that, a lot from some of the security stuff, as far as how to keep yourself safe, some of the kind of just the ground rules on dealing with shopkeepers and stuff like that. And then we'll also talk about meeting another person, like a one-on-one kind of meeting, in more of a remote environment. So let's say you live rurally, you're meeting someone to trade something somewhere out in kind of the middle of nowhere, how you'd want to set that up. And a lot of that is just common sense. A lot of that is, just basic security and Overwatch and different things like that. And some of it is pulled from Patriots. James Wesley Rawls talks about that a little bit in Patriots. And then there's also some good information, and I just want to give this credit to this early in Angry Americans series on Going Home. And so he talks a little bit about some of those things and that kind of stuff too. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started here. And I've got some notes down here that I'm kind of referring to just to make sure that I hit all the points. Barter is a dangerous proposition. But it is vital and going to be a continuous part of life after SHTF. If you think that you have everything you need and you're not going to ever have to barter with anybody, you're sorely mistaken. It's just not the reality. So having a plan for and knowing how to go about it is a crucial life-saving skill set. There is a lot that goes into it. So some of the ground rules. I got 12 points here on the ground rules, and here's the first one. Number 1 is know the going rates. Don't get duped. So even though we're talking about barter, which is highly fluid, there is still going to be, measures of exchange and what those things are worth. But it's a pound of rice or a pound of flour. Maybe it's silver. Maybe it's ammunition. Maybe it's who knows what. But there's going to be some sorts of standards on what is valuable and how much that's worth. So it's going to be to your benefit to keep track of that so that you're not getting ripped off, But it also does have to do a certain degree with just what you need, If somebody has something you really need, then you may end up paying more for it. But try to keep apprised of the going rates. Number 2. It doesn't hurt to go to the market looking a little bit dirty and a little bit hungry. But you have to balance this with security needs. So going as a hobo, dressed up, just completely like you're destitute and have no money at all, is probably not going to work to your advantage. But at the same time, you don't want to be super clean, well-fed, and look like you have everything that you need and all that, because people are going to want to charge you more. So keep that in mind too. Number 3 is greet the shopkeeper with a friendly tone and compliment them on their wares. And this has always been successful because it starts the relationship off where you're providing them a compliment, you're showing them grace, you're being nice, and you're hoping that will work in your favor in return, that they'll treat you the same way, number 1, but also maybe give you a little better deal. All right. Number 4 is don't give them too much personal information about yourself or your group. You would be very surprised at how good these people are at cataloging information about people. There's been multiple times when I've gone to markets and just had, brief conversations with people, and then I might come back another week or 2 later and they remember small, what was to me insignificant details about conversations that we had. So especially if you're going to a place time and time again, you really want to kind of be careful about how much you provide in the way of your personal information, your group, where you're located, all those kinds of things. And that's kind of just a basic OPSEC thing too. But okay, number 5 is always act as though you're not really in need of any particular item, that you're just browsing. And this is a pretty obvious one, but you don't want them to know that you really need to have that product, whatever it is, because that price or that product just went way up if it did. Okay, let's see. Number 6, be ready to walk away as a tactic to get the price lower. This really works pretty well. Multiple times when I've gone out, if I'm looking at something and I kind of like it, I'm like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. But then we start to haggle and go back and forth on it, and then I'm like, that's just a little rich for my blood. I think I'm just going to look around, see if I can find one somewhere else a little cheaper, and then go ahead and walk out the store. And you'd be surprised, either before you get out the store, they'll stop you and lower their price, or as you continue to walk around the market, when they see you again, they'll be like, hey, come back in, let me talk to you about this. So don't be afraid to walk away. All right, number 7 is do not show them what you're willing to trade until the last minute. So we're talking about a barter society, and that means that you're going to have to pay with something else. And so the worst thing for you to do is to show all your cards all at once. When you start talking about it, you want to get a feel for what it is that they think they have and how valuable they think it is first, and then you can start to formulate, okay, maybe I can trade him for this or that. Like, you want to try to figure out what it is he's wanting and what it is he's needing, before you just kind of pull your backpack open and go, I got this and this and this. You want to ramp that back and not show that until you're certain that you want to get it and you think that you can strike a deal with him based on something that you have. And when you do pull out whatever it is that you're gonna trade, really try to only show him those items. Hold these other things in reserve. Okay. And especially hold the higher value items till the last. And that's a security thing too, because you don't know if other people are watching, or whatever the case may be. So you want to kind of keep that low profile. All right, number 9 is start haggling at about 50% of the listed value of whatever, if he says I want 2 pounds of rice, then you start somewhere around 1 pound or something like that. That seems to be a pretty good starting point for most shops, in at least places that I've done that kind of shopping, or those third world markets. Okay, let's see here. And that's just a rough estimate, really. If you don't have anything else to go off of, that 50% point is usually a fairly good starting point. Now, if they're way overpriced, obviously you have to use common sense here, but Okay. Number 10 is point out minor problems with the item, but don't be insulting. Um, Insulting their products and their things, that they have for sale will shut shopkeepers down quick, and they'll be like, no, go, I don't want to hear about it. You know what I mean? Like, they'll just tell you to leave. But there is a difference between insulting them and their product and looking at it and evaluating it in a critical way with a critical eye, and that kind of thing. And what you're trying to do there is every time you point out a small flaw or something, you're saying, well, we're going to, have to lower the price a little here. You're not really saying it, but that's what you're, mentally kind of telling him. And so you're softening him for your price pitch, which is going to be significantly lower than his. And you only want to point out, a few items. You don't want to like sit there for 5 minutes and just continue on, because that's not going to work. Just a few things here or there, just to kind of soften the blow. Okay, let's see. So number 11 is, after the deal is struck, if you made out well in the transaction, offer to sweeten. So this is after it's done, after you've agreed to everything. Offer to sweeten the deal just a little bit in their favor for free. This is going to go a long ways towards you helping to build a relationship with them, which will help you get better prices in the future. So let's say you agreed to trade that 1 pound of rice, whatever. Throw in an extra few ounces. Not a whole lot, throw it, or add in, I don't know, AA battery or whatever the case may be, something along those lines. And just say, hey, no, I appreciate you doing business with me fairly, and I just want to make this a little better deal for you. And, that investment will go a long ways, and it will save you a lot of money in the long run. So think about that. Okay, number 12 is, you don't want to be known as the guy who has everything, but it is okay to be known as the guy who knows a guy who can get everything. And I got to give credit to Angry American here. I think that line came out of like the 8th or 9th book in his Going Home series, and that is that's a great point. And that's you don't want to look like you have everything, but if you can present yourself in a way that makes you look like you know a guy, you can get something. Give me a couple days, and I got a contact. Let me talk to my man, and those kinds of things. Then that's a good place to be in, because then you get people coming to you with different offers all the time, and the stuff that you have excess of, you can get rid of and get stuff that you need, and you just appear to be the middleman transacting between other folks. Okay, so those are the first 12 points on just kind of the ground rules of bartering. Let's talk about some more on the security side of if you're going to a marketplace. So let's say you have a local farmers market set up, or there's been just an impromptu flea market kind of thing, or just whatever, where people are coming together and they're trading stuff and setting up commerce basically. Number 1 here is, you want to always go in at least 3-man teams. More is better. At a minimum, you want to have one person stay and watch the horses, bikes, trucks, whatever the case may be, whatever your transportation is, and maybe you walked, but they can still just pull outer perimeter security. You want them back away from the action, keeping an eye on everything outwards, okay, and looking from the perspective of outside in, but mostly looking for something else happening that's going to be targeting the market, because marketplaces are frequently, in third world countries all around the world, are frequently attacked by opposition groups, terrorist groups, different things along that line. So you want to do that, and you also want to have somebody watching your transportation, whatever it is, so that it doesn't get stolen. Okay. Then, after you got one outer security person, then you want to have one person to pull inner security for the person who's doing the trading. Try not to be too obvious that you're working in teams if possible, and don't stand around looking like Captain America. Don't stand around with your chest puffed up and looking like you're pulling security. This person's job is to keep an eye on what's going on inside the market. Okay, looking around, looking to make sure everything looks normal, that there's no disturbances, you know, those kinds of things, and to make sure that no one else is watching, well, them, or the guy that they're pulling security for. Okay, they can be casually browsing, but they don't need to get, you know, involved in any significant conversations. They're just looking, and their eyes are floating around, looking over here, looking over there, just keeping an eye out. Because the guy who's doing the trading is going to have to be engaged in personal conversation. He's going to have to be talking to the guy, and he can't pay attention to his surroundings. So that's why you need the second guy. Okay. Number 2 is do a walk around the perimeter of the market before entering it, if possible, to look for anyone who's surveilling it or who is about to ambush it. Now, you may or may not be able to do this depending on the situation of the market, but if you can, let's say if it's in like a small town city center, they have the market set up here. Maybe you can walk a block, around in each direction just to kind of take a look, make sure everything looks okay before you go into the market. If it's in a more remote area, out in the wilderness kind of thing, set up for like multiple farmers to come together, then you could probably do the same thing out in the open. But it may not be set up that you can do that, but if it is, you should. Number 3 is upon arrival, do a quick walkthrough of the market itself and scan the area for signs of any trouble before you get trading. So you just took a look at the outer perimeter, area outside the market. Then once you get in, you want to go in and look around and make sure that everything appears to be normal. When you're doing this, you're looking to make sure that there's no one making trouble. Obviously, you're also looking to make sure that all the shopkeepers are acting normally. That they're not. It doesn't seem like the mood is different or the atmosphere has changed. Maybe that they're being held under duress or any of those kinds of things. You just want to make sure that everything seems to be normal before you actually go and get to business. And at the same time, this is also giving you an idea to scan the area and take a look at what's at the market that day, so that you can kind of hone in on where you want to go as well. Okay, number 4 is establish a rally and signal location in case of trouble. So maybe you want to use a whistle, an air horn, a gunshot, radio, etc., whatever. You want to have some kind of signal, and the signals, maybe it's 2 blows on the whistle means that there's trouble coming. Maybe 1 long blow means get down. Maybe who knows? You come up with something on your own. But everybody in the group needs to know it, and whatever the signal is, it needs to be so that you can all hear it too. So you also need to come up with a rally location so that you all know where to meet. The most likely area is going to be back at the transportation of the vehicles, but you could also point out another area as well. Maybe someplace that has good cover. Okay. All right, number 5 is when you're leaving the market, make sure to take an indirect route home and make sure that you're not being followed before you go home. This is an important one because marketplaces are a favorite hangout and location for criminals and people who want to take advantage of other people. And so if they see you bartering and trading and you got a lot of stuff in your backpack or whatever, that could make you a target, and so you want to make sure that nobody's following you when you leave. And so taking a surreptitious route, maybe heading in the opposite direction for a while and then cutting back, then doubling back again, and then coming around another way, something along those lines, going through some long open areas so that you can be sure that you're not being followed. And then when you get through that open area, sit back in the woods just far enough that you can see that whole open area and make sure nobody's skirting the edges of it or going through it. There's a lot of different things you can do, but essentially you just need to be sure that you're not being followed before you go home. Okay, next section here is if you're doing a one-on-one meeting in a remote place. This is going to be somewhere not really in town, not in a market, and you're coming together with somebody maybe that you don't trust, you don't really know very well, and there could be an argument to say you should never barter with somebody you don't know or trust. But that's very limiting, because the situation and the reality of the situation might be such that you don't have a choice. Maybe they need something, you have something that or maybe they have something that you really need. Maybe it's antibiotics for a sick member in your family. Maybe it's, I don't know, who knows what, garden seeds or, whatever. And maybe you're forced into this situation. So you want to approach this from a tactical kind of nature as much as possible. And the first part of this is that you always want to do your best to dictate the location of the trade. So if at all possible, you want to be the one that sets up the meeting location. You don't ever want to trade at your residence unless you're certain that you can trust the person. And I'm talking certain, like lifelong friend, family member, whatever, somebody that that is a good friend of yours. Okay. Ideally, you're going to be looking for, this number 2, ideally you're going to be looking for a position that is kind of higher and raised ground, maybe the open hillside, where the route of approach for the other people who are coming is coming up a hill where you can see them for a long distance. Okay, so where you're up on elevated ground, you can see them approaching, and then they come in. That's going to be good. It depends on the terrain, obviously, but that's going to be the best case scenario. On the opposite side of the hill from where you're standing, kind of the direction where you came from, you'd want to have, it'd be beneficial if you had cover of woods, some large rocks, something along those lines, maybe 100 or 200 yards from the meeting location. Again, this may not be possible. We're just talking about ideal circumstances, in my opinion. Okay, and the reason for that is number 3 here, you're going to want to have a minimum of 4 shooters with you. So that's 5, total of 5. Number 4 is you're going to want to have 2 long-distance shooters arrive, at least a couple of hours early. And you want to have, and that's kind of a minimum, really. And you want to have them create a hide site as far back as they can, where they can actually make, a good kill shot, maybe even headshots. And you wouldn't necessarily aim for the head, but I'm just saying that kind of accuracy. So you want to have them set up their hides at about that distance. So that's going to largely be determined upon their skill, the terrain, the weather, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and they are going to keep a low profile, assume that the other people, might be trying to do the same thing. So they're going to have to, go in and kind of sneaky peek, kind of quiet and evasion-like and all that kind of stuff. But you want to have each shooter positioned at your 4 and 8 o'clock positions so that they will have a clear firing line to the person who you're dealing with and the people that you're dealing with who are standing in front of you. Okay? But you don't want to have them right behind you, because then they're not going to have a shot. So they got to be offset to the sides so that they can both, engage that way. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, number 5 is the other 2 shooters need to be comfortable with close-up, quick shooting, and if possible, they need to be wearing body armor, and those kinds of things. I mean, the other shooters that should have body armor as well, but they're going to be a little bit further back, so it's probably not as crucial. Number 6, it may be, and the way you want to have them positioned is basically just to your back on each side, so that you don't want to stand in a wide 3 wide profile, because then you're blocking shots from the guys in the background. So they want to be more staggered behind you, so it's kind of like a triangle kind of shape, or something along those lines. Okay. Let's see here. So number 6 is it may be beneficial to have one of the close-in shooters be a female. And this is so that they can identify with other females that may show up, and they can, start to create relationships. And I have to give credit to James Wesley Rawls on this one. That's where I got this from. Is, you know, he talked about where that benefit came in, and having two females be able to interact with each other to establish trust, because sometimes men are just not good at it. You know, they're just going to view people as an enemy no matter what, and it may make the situation more tense than it really needs to be. Sometimes if females are there, then that could potentially soften that. Now, it really just depends on the situation and on the females and all that kind of thing, but it's something to give some thought to. Okay, so number 7, you're going to conduct the trade. Here's the thing, and I did a whole video talking about this, you guys can watch, but there's no off limits for trade such as ammo, and I'll just leave it at that. The whole idea that somebody is going to take the ammo that you just traded them for and kill you with it is stupid and short-sighted, because the bottom line is that every transaction that you're dealing with, you don't know if they are armed or not. Just because they say they don't have any ammo doesn't mean anything. Just because they say they're there to trade for rice doesn't mean anything. They may still be planning on killing you. So that whole thing is just dumb. It's really very short-sighted, and you're making the assessment of these people based off of what they're trying to trade for you, and not their character, their demeanor, and how they're acting, and all those kinds of things. Which is what you need to be looking at, you know. So I think that's silly, and you can watch that video. I'll try to link it down below where it talks more in depth about that. But anything, if it's necessary to save someone's life in your group or your family, is on the table. So. And the bottom line is every transaction is filled with the same dangers, and you need to approach the situation in such a way that you believe that it is going to get bad. So you always approach the situation as if it's going to get bad. Otherwise, you're going to be putting yourself at a false sense of security, and that's going to be a strategy for failure. Okay. Let's see here. Number 8. I only got 3 more with this one. Once the trade is done, you want to leave the area, making sure to have one person pull rear security as you back out. If the person who's pulling rear security kind of walks in a zigzag pattern, so they walk this way, and then in their peripheral vision back this way, they can kind of see what these other people are doing. And then when they turn to walk this way, they can see their peripheral vision back this way. Just walk in a zigzag pattern, and you'll always be able to have them in your peripheral vision to see what's going on. You know, until you want to do that until you get well into the wood line. Number 9 is be ready for the possibility that you will get ambushed after the trade. Make sure to spread the formation out, and don't bunch up, and don't let your guard down. So you've just come off the field, you pulled rear security as you went off, you're into the wood line, and you're getting ready to go home. You want to make sure that you don't bunch up. Okay, that's crucial, because that is just asking to get ambushed. So you want to stay spread out. You want to stay alert, because this might be the most dangerous time of the whole thing, because now those people have what they want already, and their little runner took off with it or whatever, and now maybe their friends are going to come in and ambush you and take back what they just gave you. So it's important to keep your situational awareness up, and really be turned on. I mean, be like, ready to engage, like looking for threats immediately after this. You also want to, let's go to number 10, is, don't take a direct route home, just like we talked about with the other one. Make sure you're not being followed, and make sure that you double back several times, and, even use counter-tracking techniques to make your trail hard to follow. Okay? So, a meeting like this is not just something that you just do willy-nilly. It's going to take planning. It takes time. It takes effort. And, it's really an all-day or a multi-day affair. So, to do it right and to make sure that you're not going to be taken advantage of. So, you know, there a lot goes into it. These are just thoughts that came into my mind, like I said, that I think would be important and things that you should consider if you ever, you know, find yourself in this situation. And because barter is a reality in a collapse environment, and maybe it's not even barter, maybe you're still using cash. The idea that cash is just going to instantly lose its value, that's not a real thing. This is more talking about long term, down the road, way down the road after money has stopped. But pretty much all these rules can all be used even if you're still using cash. You know, even if there's still an economy, but maybe the stores aren't open as much and you're doing more trading with just neighbors and different things. You know, this stuff could still be used at local flea markets and, you know, and farmers markets and different things like that. So, you know, just more of a maybe the collapse is kind of a long, slow slide, and that things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. You know, which is realistic. Like, look at Venezuela and Argentina and all the different things. You know, the ways that they happen is fairly extended over time, and things just get worse and worse and worse. Well, when you're going to these markets, you'll find that more and more people start to show up at these markets. They start to become a bigger threat. More and more criminals get there. You can start applying these things, even if it wasn't total collapse. So anyway, guys, I hope this has been helpful. As always, guys, I definitely appreciate it when you sign up for my email distribution list over at realitysurvival.com. I've been trying to put out more blog posts recently. They'll have, most of those posts are going to have the videos embedded in a topic, but they also have a lot of more long form writing and content and stuff like that. You can print those articles on PDF and save them to an emergency binder or something along those lines if you wanted to. And also, I have all of my affiliates over on the right-hand side of the page. And if you just click on those banners, there's an Amazon banner, there's like Cabela's, Optics Planet, Palmetto State Armory, like all the food companies. I mean, there's just tons and tons of different affiliates. Click on those, go to their websites, and when you buy your stuff, they slide me a small percentage, and it doesn't cost you anything else. And that is the business model that I'm trying to use to bring you guys good deals, to give you guys coupon codes and stuff like that with those affiliates that I work with. One of the coupon codes that I have that's still going on, or discounts, is with Energy and their new K2 solar generator. And I'll put a link to that in the description. And if you use that to purchase right now, it's going to save you like almost $600, I think, $575 or something like that dollars on one of their pre-sale items. So if it is still on pre-sale when you're watching this, because it's not going to last a whole lot longer, you can get the K2 for about $1,300. Now, obviously, if you're watching this video later, then it's, you know, it may or not be on pre-sale still. But yeah, if you use that affiliate link, it's going to give you an additional 20% off of their pre-sale price. So you're getting it for like $1,300. That's a hell of a deal. So anyway, and I know a lot of guys have taken advantage of it recently, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad that it saved you money. So anyhow, guys, don't forget to click the thumbs up button and share with your friends on Facebook and Google. And don't forget to live the 6 Ps. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Stay safe, guys.